we go. My biggest task of the day. Good afternoon, and thank you for joining the 2021 Knowledge Mobilization Awards presentation and keynote hosted by the ASU Graduate College. My name is Keith Chandler. I am the event coordinator for the Graduate College. If you've been tuning in throughout the day, you've seen me, you've heard my voice, and you've seen, most importantly, all of the finalists for this year and their amazing research and presentations. We have heard so much about research and progress and completed research. And in a few moments, we will be announcing our awardees for the day. However, at this time, I'm going to get right into our objective. I would like to introduce Vice Provost and Dean of the Graduate College, Elizabeth Wentz, to make opening remarks and to introduce today's keynote speaker. Dean Wentz, the floor is yours.
Thanks so much, Keith, and thanks for the opportunity to say a few words. Before I sort of get into the introductory remarks, I do want to say a few words. And first, I want to give a big thanks to the Graduate College staff for their efforts in organizing and hosting this event. Heather and Keith are certainly the primary contacts for that. Associate Dean Enrique Vivoni also has been a significant participant in all of this, and there's been other people who have pitched in from time to time to make sure that this event has been successful. So a great, big, huge thank you to all of you for that work. A little bit about the background of this, what you may not know. The awards for this are in their 5th year. This year has been just an explosion. We received over 116 applications, which is the largest pool in the history of this award. So we're getting visibility, and they were all fantastic. It's really, really difficult to make these incredible choices. And I think that's really a testament to the importance of this kind of work. There were 23 different academic units, and over 70 programs were represented this year. And so today we're celebrating 18 finalists in 6 different categories. Very difficult decisions. So a little bit about the Knowledge Mobilization Initiative. I know you guys are an important part of it. It was established in 2017. And the intent is that it supports graduate education, to really enhance graduate education so they can make an impact with their scholarship. By informing policy, changing current practice, the way they interact with the partners in the community. And in fact, it's been pretty common that I've worked with graduate students, and they don't like that notion of the ivory tower that, we just over here conduct our research, but they just really want to sort of dig in, get their hands dirty, and do things that are really meaningful. And I think all of you are here because of that broad commitment. So of course, we're here to recognize and celebrate the success of our graduate students and postdocs who are engaged and really kind of rolling up their sleeves and making a difference. So thank you to all of you for doing that. Another one of my responsibilities today is the pleasure of introducing our keynote speaker, Ron Beghetto, who is a professor and Pinnacle West Presidential Chair at the Mary Lou Fulton Teachers College here at ASU, which is fantastic. He's a internationally recognized expert on creative thought and action in educational settings, which is just really amazing. He's done things on the role of uncertainty, creative risk-taking, and how it plays in creative expression, in creative teaching and learning, and creative identity development. He's looked at how to make principled changes to existing teaching, which is really about this practice, mobilization and learning and in leadership practice, and how it can be more creative and more productive in educational contributions. He also works really critically to support teachers and young people in making positive and lasting contributions to their learning lives and to the lives of others. So a really, really impressive portfolio here. What is fantastic about it is that he's been really recognized for this work too, as a fellow for the Society of Psychology of Aesthetics, Creativity, and the Arts from the American Psychological Association, a fellow for the International Society for the Study of Creative and Innovation, and in 2018, he was a recipient of the Rudolph Armanian Award for Outstanding Achievement in the Psychology of Aesthetics, Creative, and the Arts. So really great that he does phenomenally creative and impactful research, and great that his professional societies are recognizing the importance of that work. So please join me in welcoming Ron, and really looking forward to your remarks. So thanks so much.
Thank you, Dean Wentz. It's a true honor to be here today and really have the opportunity to celebrate and recognize the research being conducted by ASU graduate students and postdoctoral scholars. And I do have a couple brief slides, and I'm going to keep my remarks very brief. I know it's Friday afternoon, so I do want to just keep those remarks kind of brief. But I do want to highlight this idea that all research, in fact, is kind of a form of risk-taking. And when we're engaged in the kind of research that we're celebrating today, the kind of action forward and socially impactful research, it's a kind of risk that I would call a beautiful risk. And now a beautiful risk involves taking actions, even though they may not work out, that have the potential to benefit the learning and lives of others and the world around us. And so this kind of research endeavor, whenever we engage in all research, but also the kind of research that does involve beautiful risk-taking, it really is this kind of encounter with uncertainty. And it's kind of a planned encounter with uncertainty, because we are engaged in these kind of systematic research projects. But no matter how well we plan these, we always are going to kind of encounter uncertainty. And the thing about that is, even though uncertainty is somewhat uncomfortable, it is a signifier and an opportunity for us to think and act in new ways. And when we're doing socially impactful research, it's also a signifier that sometimes we may actually need to think and act in new ways. And I think many of the projects that were showcased today and all the submissions highlight this kind of effort, really trying to encourage all of us, regardless of where we are in our career, to engage in different forms of thoughts and action such that we can make consequential results and share those out in the world and make an impact. So I just want to highlight, how is it that uncertainty is kind of infused throughout this entire process? It starts with the kinds of questions we ask. When you're engaging in kind of action forward research that is going to live out in the world, already the questions become extraordinarily complex, right? You're tackling wicked issues, wicked topics that don't have clear-cut answers. And so we do, even when we're kind of posing these questions, experience states of genuine doubt. There is a lot of unknown that we're kind of wrestling with. And what in the field of creativity research we talk about a lot is the importance of really learning to sit with that uncertainty and recognize it as a time not to move forward, but to think through different possibilities, and recognize that oftentimes it's about defining or even finding the problem that is almost more important than the solution itself. So really thinking through, what is the issue at hand? Let's spend time identifying, finding the problem, then engage in the next steps of that work. So that's a really important piece, is kind of learning to sit with uncertainty and recognizing that it's an invitation for us to really broaden the horizons of possibilities in our thinking. And I think we see this today through the different types of projects that are being showcased. Then in the next step, if the questions are so complex, then our methodologies are going to need to be equally complex, right? We have to kind of, again, open ourselves to the different possibilities of new and blended methodologies, to the plurality of perspectives, to really think through what kinds of methods might help us really clarify the phenomenon, and also help us make sure that we can move our findings into the world. And so what we find, and I think many of you may have already found in your work in these projects here, but certainly in the course of any of your research, you know, the research is planned. When it meets the research is lived, there are always these kind of ruptures in expectation, these surprising moments. And again, those can be kind of troubling to experience at times, but they are, again, reminders that maybe we need to think a little bit different about the way we had planned this. Maybe we didn't understand the context that well, or maybe the context has changed. So again, kind of preparing ourselves, even in the methodology, for thinking differently, for expanding our horizon of possibilities. And then certainly our results. I think we go into these research endeavors not knowing what the results will be, but even beyond that, right? Recognizing that when we are engaging in this kind of meaningful, consequential work, sometimes the results that we have are going to really kind of disrupt what is already known. So kind of making the familiar unfamiliar, and thinking about, well, then how are we going to communicate that to our audiences? How are we going to help them understand what is unfamiliar and make it more familiar to them, but also help them kind of maybe transition from what has been a familiar way of thinking about this topic into this kind of new space that may seem unfamiliar and a little troubling to them even in some cases. And then most importantly are the outcomes, right? So when you're doing consequential research, it doesn't end when you give your presentation or you publish the paper, because once these projects go out into the world, they do take on a life of their own. And so it's really important to keep in mind and monitor, how are these outcomes being received? Are they really making that positive contribution that we hope that they will be? And if there are, and there usually are, unintended consequences, how can we proactively address those, both in the communities we're working with, but also in our own work now and into the future? And so taken together, I think you can see that uncertainty is kind of moves through this entire process. But again, I think we approach it as this kind of form of beautiful risk, we can see it as new opportunities, continually new opportunities for us to think and act in different ways, so that our work really does have a positive consequence in the world beyond, the research lab or the research setting. So with that, I want to invite you all to join me in recognizing and celebrating all of the graduate students and postdoctoral students' beautiful risks that they took in these particular projects. And I encourage us all to continue to take and encourage beautiful risks in our own work and the work that we support with others. So thank you for the opportunity, and it's an honor to be here. And I wish all of you that have engaged in this work all the best in your continued journey. Thank you. So at this point, maybe we can open up if we have a moment or two for any questions. Are there any questions? If you have some, you can drop them in the Q&A and we can address those. Otherwise, we can certainly transition to the awards.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Ron. We'll keep an eye on the Q&A. If you like to stick around for a little bit, if anything does pop up, we'll hop back in and we'll see if we have any questions. If not, one just popped up. This is from Jared. Can you talk about the idea of beautiful risk a bit more?
Yes, thank you, Jared, for your question. So if we think about risk, all risks involve both hazards and potential benefits, potential hazards and benefits. And so, a good risk is when the potential benefits outweigh the potential hazards, and bad risks are the opposite of that, when the potential hazards outweigh the potential benefits. And so, in our training as researchers, for example, we learn how to kind of start becoming aware of potential hazards, and the IRB that we have in place at institutions like ASU kind of help us anticipate and think through and provide those kinds of assurances. But what a beautiful risk does is it moves beyond that and really has us thinking about kind of the social responsibility of the work we're doing. So it's not really about just our research project, but how is this research going to move out into the world, and what might be some of those unintended consequences? And can we ensure that what we're doing is going to have a sustainable and positive impact? So a beautiful risk is really thinking about, okay, this is maybe a new way of asking this question, or a new methodology I'm trying, or maybe we're kind of working with a new population of folks when we're trying out this research, and maybe it's never been done before and it's not going to work out. So that's the hazard. But the potential benefit is that it seems that it's going to have a lasting positive contribution, and that we're also kind of committing ourselves to supporting that. So by monitoring these unintended consequences. So it kind of brings this evaluative component to the research project, that we, again, don't just, once it's published, we don't just put it on the bookshelf and move on, that we can continually to think about, what are the implications of the work that I've been doing? And is it in fact having a positive outcome, or is it potentially having a negative outcome that we never anticipated? So I hope that helps with that question. Thank you for it.
For some reason, I don't know how to add to the Q&A, so since I can just talk, I will just talk, if you don't mind me asking a question too. I find that really interesting in this relationship with risk, and I've been in some events this week that have talked a little bit more directly about risk relative to your own sort of personal choices. And I'm curious if you can speak to how much it might relate to the idea of advocacy, either self-advocacy, advocacy for others, or advocacy for a cause, and how those might be tied together to what you've been thinking about.
Yeah, I think that's a critically important question, because I think risk taking is really supported by the context we find ourselves in. And the same thing is true with any kind of creative endeavor or creative expression, that in some contexts, just the hazards of doing something different might outweigh the potential benefits for the self or even others. And so I think part of that is recognizing, and folks that are in positions of power trying to create spaces where it is safe for people to take risks, to try new things out, and also to advocate for oneself, which could include finding another context that this work may be kind of supported and doing work. So particularly when you're working with young people, even in creative expression, and I work in education a lot. So there are some classrooms, for example, where unfortunately creative expression isn't going to be well received, right? It's a very kind of fixed, structured environment. There's already predetermined outcomes. And so having kind of folks learn how to read that context, it doesn't mean to let that go, but to find kind of allies and advocates where you can work together, where the context and the work can still move forward. So I think there is that kind of interplay of advocacy for self and others that fits in nicely with the concept of beautiful risk. Thank you, Dean Wentz, for that question.
Ron, I had another question for you. Something that came up in several of our roundtables today was this idea of the importance of researchers having a really deep and full understanding of the context that they're working in. You know, the researcher is not an island. So I was wondering if you could comment a little bit on the role that collaboration might take with beautiful risks.
Yeah, collaboration is key. I think part of any, again, creative endeavor, and certainly beautiful risk taking, is the importance of being open to difference and the plurality of perspectives, right? And not assuming. So part of beautiful risk taking and all this creative work, when we're exploring new possibilities, that also means really challenging our assumptions at a very deep level. And I think the way to do that is to bring in as many different perspectives as possible so that we think through, even, for example, the most cherished methodologies, or this line of research has really been well established in this particular context. As you move it to another context, that may not be the case. So I think being open to the possibility that we might need to completely rethink everything and kind of make shifts to the way we think and act. And those can be slight shifts, or those can be quite dramatic shifts. So it is, yes, you know, creative experiences are kind of marked by plurality of perspectives, kind of a non-linear trajectory, plurality in methodologies. And so I think that fits nicely with the conversation that was going on earlier today. Thank you.
As a quick follow-up to that, I was wondering if you had any examples of beautiful risks that kind of met wicked problems, or beautiful risks that didn't pan out, and how we as researchers, especially young early career researchers, can position those situations as a success for ourselves.
That's a great question. So on the first part of that, so beautiful risks, you know, in trying to engage with wicked problems, I think part of that is bringing in different folks from different disciplines and perspectives. So transdisciplinary research is kind of a beautiful risk, because oftentimes research trained in particular traditions may not even be able to communicate that well with each other initially. And so just being in the same room is almost a beautiful risk if you're really open to listening and thinking through the different methodologies. And so in some previous work, when I was at the University of Connecticut, I worked with a group of medical researchers, and they were also working in the field of technology, and they were trying to think, how can we kind of blend what we're doing in technology with medicine to really tackle some challenging health issues, for example. And so that was an example where folks came together in a space and were really open to exploring possibilities and setting aside what already is in an effort to move to what could or should be. And the flip side of that is, whenever you do a project and it's kind of a new way of thinking, you're testing out a new idea, a new model, a new intervention, or even a new methodology, sometimes and oftentimes it doesn't work out the first time. But rather than just cast that as a kind of a finalized failure, something you can do with the team that you're working with is have kind of a celebration of learning. So rather than say, we're only going to celebrate the projects that worked out, for example, it would be, let's let everyone share what went well with their project, what didn't go so well, but most importantly, what did you learn about yourself by taking this risk? What did you learn about this process? And then what would you do next time? So no matter what happens to the project, everyone still has a chance to kind of share and learn from each other in those spaces.
Let's see, we had one more question come in through the chat. Can you speak to how we can partner with communities to let them help determine what is a positive outcome of our research?
Yeah, that's a critically important question. Thank you, Barbara, for asking that. Yeah, I think, part of this work is, again, moving away from the researcher as all-knowing, right? So I think if we remind ourselves that we're constantly engaging with uncertainty, part of that is the uncertainty about our own interpretations of findings as being positive or beneficial or successful. And I think if we are in good faith doing this kind of work, it really is about hearing from our communities, really, and helping our own communities identify what those problems are. So, for example, working with young people in schools, rather than say, here's a project for a project-based learning, asking young people to say, what is something that really bothers you that's a problem that maybe nobody else even recognizes as a problem in your school, your neighborhood, community, something that bothers that you want to change. And then providing the support to engage in work and bring in experts to kind of engage in that kind of work. So I think it's really about building that from the get-go about what is this project about? Because oftentimes when you think about the uncertainty of the problem in the problem finding phase, the problem that sometimes we as researchers identify is only a symptom of a deeper problem. And sometimes it could even be the solution to the problem that we were thinking about, right? So I think, again, about keeping open, about challenging assumptions, but really hearing these different perspectives. The other thing to do with that is when we feel like we have something that has worked well and it's ready to be implemented in a community, for example, to engage in this kind of worst case thinking scenario. So before implementing it, to invite all the stakeholders to say, let's imagine we implement this and it's a catastrophic disaster. What went wrong? And people can write that down on anonymous note cards, and then you just gather and you go through one by one and you see, are there common patterns here? And even if they're not, what are these issues that are being raised at this point? Because there's usually a lot of excitement and most people don't want to wait and say, wait, let's stop. I've been worried about this. So letting people express their concerns and kind of anticipate some problems can actually help enrich the project and make it a much more robust success. But, outcomes, all these things sound very finalized. They change by time and space. So what was successful right now for this particular time and group of folks could change tomorrow, right? So I think constantly checking in, monitoring about are these kind of interventions or ideas still working for this context is another way to ensure that you're having kind of positive outcomes. So it's kind of a never-ending process.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Ron. It looks like there's no other questions at this time unless there's anything that Dean Wentz or Heather would like to add.
Thank you for being here and for your thoughts. I think that you've echoed a lot of the conversations that we've had in other venues throughout the day. And I hope that especially our finalists who are very early in their programs and very early in their projects take to heart that particularly at ASU, there are faculty and structures that will support you if you want to take risks in your own research.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'll just echo what, Heather said, just really appreciative of your time today and just really appreciate you being generous with sharing your thoughts and with this group. So thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you. And again, congratulations to all students that are and postdocs that are working on these kind of consequential questions. That in and of itself is a risk. So I really do applaud and appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ron, for your words and your time today. We appreciate it. At this time, we are going to begin announcing the recipients of the 2021 Knowledge Mobilization Awards. Heather, if you want to get our slides prepared to start sharing. First, I would just want to give a big thank you to all of our finalists, our panelists, our speakers who participated today. Your research and your that's completed and your research in progress is very important. It has a lot of merit. Obviously, you've come very far to get to this point today, and we are very excited to be sharing your research with the world. We also wanted to take a quick moment to acknowledge the fact that some of our finalists could not be here with us today because of their ongoing research activities. They are a living example of knowledge mobilization in progress right now. Quick information about the awards today. Like we've mentioned before, we have 6 award categories. And the award recipients will be receiving monetary gifts to be used to help fund their ongoing research efforts, and also a plaque as well. All remaining finalists will be receiving a certificate of participation and the opportunity to participate in a book selection. What the Graduate College is going to do is we're going to provide you with a list of selected titles, and you will be able to choose one of those books, and we will send that book to you along with your certificate as well. So congratulations for that. We are not going to be asking our awardees today to make any remarks or anything like that. However, what I will try to do is I'll try to find our awardees in the attendees list if they're present, and I'll upgrade them to a panelist so that way they can give a little wave and you can see them in the event that you didn't get to see their research presentation earlier today. That being said, it is time to announce our first award for Master's Research in Progress. And the 2021 recipient is Amanda Trackis. Her research is entitled See Kids, Considering Kids in the Design of Safe Streets. We look forward to seeing the continuous results of your research. As you can see here, Arizona is currently ranked in the top 10 most dangerous states for pedestrians by Smart Growth America, and nationally recognized nonprofit advocacy organization that promotes sustainable urban development, and with the aim of reducing the incidence of child pedestrians involved in car crashes, KIDS begins with the analysis of Arizona Department of Transportation crash data from 2015 to 2019 to identify not only the physical conditions that may be contributing to these crashes, but the broader trends related to the race, income, and education that may demonstrate. So congratulations, Amanda, for that. Our next award is for Master's Completed Research, and that goes to Cameo Flores. Cameo Flores for her research entitled Weaponizing the Mariachi 2015 through Today, Mexicanidad and the Trump Administration. Let me see if Cameo is able to join us as an attendee right now. I don't see her on the list right now, unfortunately, but she did have the opportunity to present to us earlier today on her research. So congratulations goes out to Cameo. Our next award category is in the doctoral research in progress, and that goes to Noah Bruhis for her research entitled Helium Rising, a case study on envisioning future for underground resource extraction. Unfortunately, she could not be here with us today to either present or join the award ceremony. However, we do extend our congratulations to Noah for her research and award. Our next award for doctoral completed research goes to Anais Roque for her research entitled Water Sharing as Disaster Response in Puerto Rico, Coping with Water Insecurity in the Aftermath of Hurricane Katrina. And I believe that, yes, she is on the call right now. I'm going to promote her to a panelist so we can see her. Changing my view a little bit as well, so that way you can see the side-by-side. As you can see, a little example of her research here right now. Almost 2 billion people worldwide are water insecure. This research is intended to examine how Puerto Rican residents coped with water insecurity in the aftermath of Hurricane Maria in 2017. Congratulations, Anais. Our next award in the category of research in progress in postdoctoral goes to Barbara Quimby for her research entitled Water for Agriculture, Stakeholder Engagement in the Verde Valley, Arizona. I know that Barbara is on the call right now. I will promote her to a panelist so she can give us a little wave. As you can see here, involving local communities in processes for decision-making and program management is increasingly seen as a critical strategy to address complex natural resource issues. Congratulations, Barbara, for your award today. And in the final category of postdoctoral completed research, The award goes to Shauna Andrea Fu for her research entitled Drivers of Fish Populations in Hawaii Islands. Let me see if Shauna's on the call today. Yes, she is. Promote her to the panelists to say hi. I wish we could all actually, make noise with our hands right now. Please know that we are doing it in a virtual format. Shauna, congratulations on your award today. Human activities and land use drivers combine in complex ways to affect the diversity and abundance of reef fauna. Understanding the relative influence of these drivers is important in assessing pathways for managing and protecting coral reef ecosystems, etc. Congratulations, Shauna, on your award. We will be posting all of this information on our Knowledge Mobilization Awards website that we will be sending out to anyone that registered for today's event and anyone who attended. So you can learn more, not only about our awardees, but about all of the finalists as well and all of their research projects, just in case you didn't have the opportunity to see them present throughout the day today. If anyone does have any closing questions for anyone, our finalists, our panelists, anyone like that is present today, feel free to throw those into the Q&A right now. We're happy to be on standby as the event concludes to answer any questions you might have. But as of right now, that is the conclusion of the 2021 Knowledge Mobilization Awards. Once again, congratulations to our awardees and our finalists. Your research and your knowledge base is so extensive, and we're very happy to be sharing it with the world and happy to be supporting it. And yes, for everyone who attended today, we look forward to seeing you again next year and telling you even more about the important research that is happening here at the ASU Graduate College.